Well, thank you very much for tuning in. This is Dr. Sean Yoder, and today we're going to do Macroeconomics, Chapter 7. We're going to talk about unemployment and inflation. So I have a nice caffeinated beverage, and we're going to get cracking on this. Now, two things of note. First thing I want to talk to you about is when we talk about unemployment, let's clarify explicitly what we're talking about with regards to unemployment. Unemployment that we're going to discuss is the measuring of unemployment for the unemployment rate. This is different than receiving quote-unquote unemployment or unemployment benefits. Unemployment checks are programs administered by the state, not the federally counted unemployment rate. So please keep that in mind. I'll talk about unemployment benefits a little later in the lecture, but make sure you remember we're talking about measuring of the unemployment rate, which is totally different than the administration of unemployment benefits. Okay. So first up, each month, unemployment rate items are done by Bureau of Labor Statistics. They calculate the unemployment rate. They also calculate the CPI. So here we go. Everybody in the United States, and by everybody, I mean everybody. You mean the baby who was born last night at the hospital, grandpa sitting in the chair, everybody, a visitor who came in to go to Disneyland, everybody falls into one of three bins, okay? Everybody. Here legally, here illegally, everybody falls into one of three bins. Now, the first bin is employed. In order to count as employed, I need to add something here to what's on the slide. You have to be human and you have to be breathing. Okay, these are important details. There was a problem a while ago with some government records where they were counting people who were non-breathing, and then there was a problem with another program where they were actually counting dogs inadvertently. So you must be human, you must be breathing, and you must be 16 years old or older. So let's make this very clear. If you are 15 years old and you have a job, it doesn't matter. You're not counted as being employed in the United States. But Dr. Yoder, I have a job, even though I'm 15. I know. Part of the reason for this is child labor laws, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Generally, if you're less than 16 years old, you don't count. You do not count if you are 15 or younger. Okay. Human breathing over 16 or older. Then you must tick at least one of the next three boxes. Right? Anyone will work. So let's cover it. So the first box is you work for pay, either for someone else or your own business for at least 1 hour a week. So let's be clear. You make $1 working for at least 1 hour. Congratulations, you're employed. You're done. Now stop for a minute and think. Can you make ends meet working for $1 for 1 hour a week for yourself? What about your family? But if you make $1, if you go and mow your neighbor's lawn and they pay you $10 and they took at least an hour, congratulations, you are employed. We're done. We count you as employed. You go and babysit the kids next door. You know, the kid next door who screams a little bit, but is actually a pretty nice kid. You know, congratulations, you make at least $1 and you actually spend at least an hour doing it. Congratulations, you're employed. That's it. That's all it takes. $1 for 1 hour. Category 2, you get no money. You're not actually even getting money in Category 2. Isn't that awesome? No money, but it's 15 hours worth of work per week in what's called a family enterprise. Now, these generally come in two forms. So when I say 15 hours a week, I want you to think 3 hours Monday through Friday, generally, or maybe some hours on the weekends, but these come in two forms. The first is a family farm. If you get up 3 days a week, get up early, feed the animals, or et cetera, you're considered employed. The second normal example is like a family restaurant where you're maybe after school doing the dishes or waiting tables, and you do it 3 hours during the weekday. Congratulations, you're employed. You get no money, but you're employed. And it's generally expected that the family's looking after you during that. But you are considered employed, even though you're not making any money. Or Category 3, you have a job, but you're absent with or without pay. So let's say you took a week's vacation and you didn't physically do any 1 hour worth of physical work that week. You still have a job. Or you're sick for a week recovering from something. You still have a job. It's not. So that's Category 3. So human breathing over 16, tick one of the next 3 boxes. You're employed. So the next category, if you don't fit into employed, you might fit in unemployed. So let's check unemployed. For unemployed, you have to be human breathing 16 years old or older, just like employed. But Dr. Yoder, what if I'm 15? Then you don't fit in unemployed either. But Dr. Yoder, I want a job. I'm 15 years old and I want a job. Well, that's great. You're still not unemployed. Now, this is hard. You're going to love this. In order to count as unemployed, you can't be employed. Now, that sounds intuitively obvious, right? But it's not. What do you mean, Dr. Yoder? Think of it this way. Let's say you have a family. You're married, you have a family, people are depending on you. And you find these part-time gigs, and this week you only found one gig and you made $40 to bring in for your family, but you're the breadwinner for your family. You lost your job, but you found a little part-time gig helping somebody and they paid you. Took 2 hours. Made $40. You count as employed. As far as the government is concerned, you are not unemployed. Now that person, if I walked up to that person and I said, are you unemployed right now? They'll be like, yeah, I don't have a job. But from the government statistics angle, you are considered to have a job. You are employed. So realize the perception of the person involved and what actually counts as far as the actual counting of the government are two totally different things. Now the next category says is available for work. Now that rules out immediately students. Students are considered not available for work. It rules out prisoners, although most prisoners that I taught in prisons, they work really hard, and a lot of them, that rules them out. It rules out several classes of people. If you're home taking care of, pardon me, if you're home taking care of a sick person, you are not available for work. And I love this one. Okay, this is the fun bit. And you have made, quote unquote, specific efforts to find work during the previous 4 weeks. So you have to make one effort, at least once, one time, in the last 4 weeks. So what counts as a specific effort? Well, applying for a job clearly does. That's easy. going to the Career Center and registering at the Government Career Center to find a job. There you go. Redoing your resume, updating your resume. That's a specific effort. Going and buying a newspaper to look at the help wanted ads. That's a specific effort. Calling your brother who lives 2 towns over and asking if they happen to have it, if they're hiring at the factory over there. That's a specific effort. You have to do it one time in 4 weeks. If you've done it at least once in 4 weeks, you're good. Really high bar here, right? One time in 4 weeks. So, one time in 4 weeks. Now let's pause for a minute. But Dr. Yoder, you said at the beginning of the lecture, unemployed does not mean unemployment insurance. That is true. Unemployment insurance is a program administered by the states. Your boss, whenever you work for somebody, is required to pay and not deduct from your paycheck, but we all know we're getting lower wages because of it. They're required to pay for unemployment insurance. So if they lay you off or you lose your job and it's not your fault, and the rules vary from state to state, you get some money sent to you by the state to pay for helping you find a new job and to bridge you over until you get a new job. Now, that unemployment insurance, usually in order to get it, you have to prove that you're making these specific efforts every week to get that week's check. So as long as you're on unemployment insurance, generally, this specific effort thing isn't an issue. Now, unemployment insurance at the states is calibrated to last 26 weeks in general. More on that later. But generally speaking, 26 weeks and 6 months. After 6 months, most people, on average, will find a job during normal times or even during a normal recession. Okay. So we have 2 bits. We have employed, unemployed. If you do not fit in employed and you do not fit in unemployed, by default, you come into this 3rd bin, not in the labor force. So who's not in the labor force? Well, the baby who was born today. Why are they not in the labor force? Because they're not looking for a job. They're under 16. Grandpa who's retired is not in the labor force. Okay. So the labor force is defined as employed plus unemployed. But I want you to see this or has given up looking, not in the labor force. So let's do a thought experiment. I want you to think about how you would react if you're in this situation. Unfortunately, you lost your job. That sucks. But you're getting unemployment insurance to help tide you over. Okay? Now, your unemployment insurance lasts 26 weeks. So for 26 weeks, you have sought faithfully a new job. Every week for 26 weeks. You've applied, you've gone to the career centers, you've done everything you can possibly do to get a new job, right? It's just not happening. The economy has turned on you. There's no jobs out there. So week 27 comes. What are you going to do? You have sought for work every week for 6 months. Week 27 comes. They're no longer paying you to look for a job. What are you going to do? I know for me, I'm not going to keep looking for something that isn't there, right? I'm giving it up. Forget that. Maybe, maybe I'll go volunteer at my kid's school. Or maybe I'm going to be standing in line at the food line. But I'm not going to be looking for a job that doesn't exist. Okay. What about week 28? Now remember, week 26, I made a specific effort. I had to get my check. 27, I didn't. Week 28, I didn't. 29, I didn't. And when I get to week 30, that's the fourth week. So now, 4 weeks after my unemployment insurance ran out, I may no longer count in the unemployed bin. Not because I don't want a job. Of course I want a job. Not because I'm not working. And if you call me and ask me, of course I want a job. I'd love a job. I'd love to go to work immediately. What can I do? But because there weren't any jobs out there. The economy is so bad. And herein is one of the reasons why professional economists hate the unemployment rate. We hate using it. It's a piece of crap. We don't like it. We do it for the politicians. And that is the unemployment rate can be going down not because things are getting better, but because things are actually getting a ton worse. So the labor force are the people employed plus unemployed, and then population is the labor force plus everyone else. Now, notice the unemployment rate is the number of people unemployed divided by the labor force. So if someone drops out of the unemployed because their unemployment insurance ran out and they no longer made specific efforts, the unemployment rate will actually go down. But think about it. Think about it for a second, what you would do. Then suddenly you turn on the nightly news and you hear, today Amazon is opening a new fulfillment center in Salem, Oregon, and Costco is building a new facility and will be hiring new people in South Salem. You're like, wait a minute, there's new jobs. Maybe I can apply for this. Let me go and get the news article and see what the details of that are. Congratulations, you just made a specific effort. And by making a specific effort, you go from not in the labor force back into the unemployed bit, which means as the economy gets better, the unemployment rate's going up. And the unemployment rate's going up not because things are getting worse, but because there's hope and people are, you see what I mean? So the unemployment rate gets worse when people lose their jobs, and then it gets worse when people are finding jobs and hope because people are, you see what I mean about the unemployment rate being fickle? Now this one, the labor force participation rate is something professional economists do like and we will use. It tells us whether people are dropping out of the labor force. What do we have to work with? But the unemployment rate is really not the most useful. So here we go. Population. Here's the labor force, employed, underemployed. Here's the labor force participation rate, 1950, around 60. Up, 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 up. This one. Houston, we've got problems. Notice it's been dropping. Here's the Great Recession, tail end of the Great Recession. To 2017, it's been dropping. Here's the unemployment rate. These were the bad stagflation era. More on that. Those were special. Look at this. Doesn't that stand out to 9.6? Yeah. Well, that one gets an asterisk. That one gets an asterisk. You know, like in baseball, where the home run records during the steroid era, the guys who were caught cheating get an asterisk? That one gets an asterisk. But Dr. Yoder, why is the 9.6 get an asterisk? Well, during the Great Recession, we found something weird that happened. So Barack Obama was president. You know, he was inaugurated midway through the start of the Great Recession. So the Great Recession was already underway when Obama took over. And candidate Obama, back in 2008, said that if he was elected, he would get the unemployment rate down below a certain number. Okay. So the Great Recession, you know, Obama took over January 2009. Great Recession is raging. 2010 election, Republicans won the House of Representatives. They took over the Congress. Now, in 2010, before the Republicans took over, a bill was introduced in the House of Representatives. And the bill, what we found is people weren't finding jobs within the 26 weeks for state unemployment benefits. And so the bill took a bunch of federal money and gave it to the states to pay for, the states would administer it, to pay for unemployment benefits for those people for another year. So you got another 52 weeks of federal money tacked on to what the state already had for 26 weeks. Now in D.C. there are generally two types. I mean, there are good people up there, but they're Congress people and senators, they kind of, there are several different types. One type never met a spending program they didn't love. They vote for everything. Then there's another type that hates everything. Seriously, they vote against everything. If it's hurricane relief, they vote against it. If it's disaster relief, if there's an earthquake, if it's a wildfire relief, if it's anything, they vote against it. Unless it's their state, of course, then they don't care. So this bill came up, and even the guys who hated it, hate spending programs, voted for it. And everyone in D.C. was like, what is going on? These guys don't like anything. You know, they're the Mikey. There's an old cereal commercial years ago for Life cereal. And the joke was Mikey hates everything, but he likes life. Yeah. Even those Congress people voted for it. And what? So 2011 came. The program was renewed. What's going on? We got into the 2012 election. Just in the summer before the 2012 election, the unemployment rate did go below what candidate Obama in 2008 said it would. But in January 2013, the program wasn't renewed. They voted against it. So why does the 9.6 get an asterisk? Well, in order to get federal unemployment benefits, you have to be making specific efforts to find them. So if you were going to compare the Great Recession unemployment rate to normal recessions, in normal recessions after 26 weeks, people would be dropping out. But not in the Great Recession because of the benefits. It artificially kept the unemployment rate high. Why did they keep the unemployment rate high? Because a candidate said, hold me to this, after 4 years of my presidency, it's going to be below this number. So were things substantively better in January 2013? Well, I'll show you in a second. This is called the discouraged worker effect, where it gets so bad people just drop out. And it is a problem in the data. So this is the average length of unemployment. Remember, state benefits are calibrated for 26 weeks. So check this, below 26 weeks, below 26 weeks. Okay, we're good, we're good, we're good. We're good, we're good, we're good. That's a little high, but we're still good. Below 26 weeks. Below 26 weeks. Houston, we got problems and But notice right here is where they lifted the program, January 2013. So answer me this. Look at those numbers. The argument on the floor of the House of Representatives and in the Senate for not renewing the program was that the economy's recovered, everything's great. Is it? Look at that. Let me draw it in. I just want you to see this. Here. And the program was lifted here. Are things better off? Everything's so much better, we don't need it. Okay. I'm sure things are better, and that's why you voted to cancel the program. Okay. I believe you. So another reason why we don't like the unemployment rate is you can manipulate the unemployment rate during recessions with policy. But that's why that 2010 unemployment rate gets an asterisk. Because you can't compare it to other recessions, just like you can't compare home run records in a steroid era with people who never took steroids. Now, I'm not going to beat on this, but I do want to make a point. Here's the unemployment rate. November 82 for the entire United States, February 2018. Caucasian, great. Notice teenagers take it on the chin. African Americans, higher, but notice teenagers take it on the chin. But I want you to stop and think about the reality for me. November 82, teenagers who are African American, 50% of them could not find a job that paid at least $1 for 1 frickin' hour a week, right? They can't find $1 for 1 hour a week. Remember, the second you get $1, you're employed. They couldn't even find that. If you grow up and live your life in this reality down here, you know, I can kind of see how people can get jaded about the system and they think the way they do. I totally get it. So realize the unemployment rate you see, if you live up here, other people in the world see and have different realities. And just because you see something with your reality doesn't mean their reality is any less valid. So please have grace for others as much as you can. They live in a different world. And they're not crazy, they're not angry, bitter, you know, the kind of just illogical. No, people respond to what's in their world. And if they're upset about something, many times they're upset for a good reason. And it helps to walk in their shoes a little bit to figure out what's going on. So we did a study back in 79 and 82. This is a tip for you in general. We tracked college students that came out during the recession, came out of graduated college during the 79 to 82. Even 15 years later, the wages, how much you were paid, lagged those of their peers who graduated before and after. If there is a recession on, do not graduate. Go for a master's degree, go study abroad, go for another major. Do not come out of college. What happens is when you graduate college during a recession, you got to find whatever job you can find. And many times it's not in the field that you have, you're going like 2 or 3 steps lower. And as you're working that job, that's fine. But then the recession's over, you go to apply for a job that you normally would have gotten when you graduate. But your skills are no longer up to date because you've been working a different job. You may not be a perfect fit any longer. And the employers want the new up-to-date skills of the current graduates. A lot of these people get trapped in a career that they, on a career ladder at lower rungs and in places they didn't want to be. Unemployment. Unemployment sucks. So what about unemployment? Well, let's bust it up. Dr. Yoder, I want to do something about unemployment, right? Which type of unemployment do you want to do something about? First one I'm going to talk about is this, cyclical unemployment. Cyclical unemployment is unemployment only due to recessions or depressions. And by only, I mean only. So an example of this is, you know, the waiters or waitresses at the restaurant, you sit down, maybe Olive Garden or somewhere like that. If there's a recession and fewer people are going out to eat, they get laid off. Now, the thing with cyclical unemployment is when you need a policy to address it, this is what the unemployment insurance and the food stamps and these kind of things, they're called shock absorbers. They're automatic stabilizers. That's what they're designed for cyclical unemployment, because when they lose their job, the economy is eventually going to recover and people are going to go out to eat again, right? It's not like people are never going to go back out to eat. So their job will come back when the economy recovers. So all that's happening here is we're bridging them or helping them survive until the economy recovers. Another type, the second type I'm going to talk about is frictional. Now, frictional unemployment, it's always there. It happens. Imagine you've graduated. Congratulations. And you're looking for a job. That's cool. However, your significant other, the person that you want to get married to, has moved. They got a job. They've moved down to California, Washington, wherever. Now, do you want a job here, or do you want to be with them? Want to be with them. Okay, are you over 16? Yes. Are you human? Yes. Are you breathing? Assumedly, yes, although I hear sometimes the lectures take the breath away, but yes, you are breathing. Okay. Are you available to work if you found the job that you're looking for? Yes. Okay. What's the problem? We need to get you down there to wherever you need to be to look for a job. And we need those employers to find you. So the frictional unemployment problem ends up being a matching problem. So technically you count as unemployed after you graduate. But that's not necessarily that there's something wrong with the economy. It's just we need to get you in. So I had a coworker. Have you ever worked in a call center? Taking phone calls from the public? For those of you who haven't, you get this headset, right? And then your phone is rigged, and it's got this button that you press, and it auto answers phone calls for you. So you just sit there with your hands at the keyboard of your computer, and then you hear this beep, and then suddenly you're connected to a person. And you talk with them, and you resolve their issue. And then they have a little button that'll delay a new call from coming in for a second while you type up notes or do whatever. And then there's a button for auxiliary, which means, oh, I got to go meet with my boss, and you press that, and they know that you're going to the bathroom or meeting with your boss or doing whatever. So I used to work the night shift. I used to, when I was in college, I had to go to classes during the day. Oh man, that 8 a.m. class sucked. I had to go to class during the day, and then I would get off and I would work until midnight, sometimes 2 a.m. in the morning in a call center. And then I'd go home and I'd get up at 8 for my 8 a.m. class, and boy, that was rough. So I had a colleague who used to work at night. The dude could not stay awake if his life depended on it. He kept falling asleep. So one time while he was there asleep at his desk, we snuck over. Realize, guys, I'm a total prankster. We stuck over and covered up the auxiliary work button, you know, the one that you hit when you go to the bathroom or whatever. We changed it to nap time. What do you think happened to this guy? Yeah, he totally got fired. So after being fired, now, notice it doesn't matter whether it's your fault or not. If you're human, breathing, over 16, available for work and unemployed, and you've made your specific efforts, you count as unemployed. In this case, the dude needs a day job. He's not cut out for working at night. He just couldn't hack it. That's frictional unemployment. What do we do for frictional unemployment? Well, the government has career centers. You go, you register in the career center, and it's kind of trying to do matchmaking between employers and employees. The former governor of Ohio, put together a website, a government website, OhioJobs. I believe it was OhioJobs.gov, but I'm not sure. But the idea was every employer in the state of Ohio could advertise on the site for free, and in so doing, every employer, if you wanted a job in Ohio, whether you live there or not, there's one place you could go to find all the information you needed. And that's what ended up happening. But that's frictional. Now, the last one is the most insidious, and the last one's a real problem. And if you wanted to come into economics and to help us in economic policy and do systems design and mechanism design with micro and macroeconomics to help your fellow people, we could really use some help with this. It's called structural unemployment. Now, structural unemployment sometimes is deliberate, sometimes not. But this kind of unemployment, we don't have a lot of great answers to. So I live here in Salem, Oregon. And when I first moved, whenever you move places or go different places, pay attention to the statues, pay attention to the monuments. It's the society saying what they value. There's something in it. So when I first moved to Oregon, I saw this huge statue on top of the Capitol building, and I go, okay, they clearly value something. What is this gold dude? And the gold dude on the Capitol is a pioneer. Oregon values their pioneer, the rustic, do-it-yourself heritage. Okay? When people came and originally colonized Oregon and settled Oregon, they came down the Oregon Trail in wagons. And those wagons had wheels. I know, that profound. Dude, Dr. Yoder, I didn't know wagons had wagon wheels. Yeah, I know. I know, right? People made wagon wheels. Now, if you made wagon wheels back in the day, and you're in today's economy, you'd be unemployed. We don't need that many wagon wheels anymore. We have tires, right? That's structural unemployment. Structural unemployment is your job is gone and it is never coming back. Bend, Oregon and Anchorage, Alaska notwithstanding, Blockbuster Video, gone. I know Kodak Film tried to do themselves as a medical company, medical pharmaceutical company. Yeah, that didn't end well. Kodak film. What? Well, we all had digital cameras, and now we all have digital cameras attached to our phones. We don't use film that much anymore. You got me? Your manufacturing plant closes down, goes overseas. It's not coming back. That's structural unemployment. If you end up structurally unemployed, that's going to bust. You're immediately going to file for unemployment insurance. You're going to get the shock absorbers for cyclical unemployment, but you're going to bust on the other side. You're not going to find the work that you used to do. It's gone. So what then? Well, the classic answer has been retraining. Now, in the NAFTA Accords, North American Free Trade Agreement, originally with Canada and Mexico, we knew that there was going to be some structural unemployment. We knew that people were going to lose their jobs. You know, it's cheaper to make blue jeans in particular in Mexico and bring them up. So we put a provision in the NAFTA Accords here in the United States. And the provision said this: if you lose your job due to NAFTA, your employer was required to pay for a new college education for you. And the idea works like this. Okay, yes, you're going to lose your job, and the employer is going to get more profits because they're making it at a lower cost. So out of the profits the employer gets, they should spend some of those profits to make you whole, so you get a college education, you get trained in something, and then after a certain number of years of that, you now are qualified for a new job, you get a better job that pays more, and the employer is getting the higher profits. That was the idea. It was trying to make a win-win. I've had students who are NAFTA students, and it totally flopped, totally didn't work. Why? Number one, some of the people weren't college material. They weren't prepped. They weren't ready for college. If you were working as a seamstress, or I don't know what the male version of it, a seamster, is that what you call them? I don't know what the gender neutral name for that would be. But if you were working sewing blue jeans together, you may not have been ready for college. And if you do get through college, let's say you get a degree in computer programming. Is that job there in the small town that you used to live in? And you used to live there, and you've lived there with that family. That's where you've grown up. Your family's lived forever. So now you're basically ordered to move? How's that work? Just because you get a college education doesn't mean that there's a job there for you. And just because you have a college education paid for you doesn't mean that you're ready for college. The policy didn't work well. And good parts of the United States got hollowed out. Some left. Some basically didn't have any choices and got stuck. So yeah, what's the policy that we have? We have college education, Pell Grants, etc. Structural's an issue. Now, old economists like me had this idea called full employment. Now, full employment is the idea that there is no unemployment due to a recession or a depression. There's always going to be some structural, there's always some frictional. You add those together, we would call that level where there's no cyclical unemployment due to a slowdown in the economy. We would say that that's full employment. But then everybody in society, not just the college students, goes, but why do you call it full employment if everybody's not employed that wants a job? They're not fully employed. And we got tired of arguing with it, so we changed the name to the natural rate of unemployment. There's sort of a rate of unemployment that the economy carries through. And each country has a different level of the natural rate of unemployment. So if you hear an old economist, Dr. Yoder, are you old? Yeah. The doctor keeps reminding me I'm old. But we're talking about the natural rate of unemployment. So this is frictional plus structural, or this is the amount of unemployment that sort of exists in the economy at all times. By the way, it sucks to be unemployed. All right, draw a line in your notes. We're going to do a completely different idea. So draw a line. What I'm about to do has nothing to do with what's above. So now we're going to do inflation. Now you've already seen one inflation metric, and that is the GDP deflator. GDP deflator is the inflation metric most preferred by professional economists. Again, we prefer it because you're not going to accuse us of biasing or picking one group over another or cherry picking in order to make a political argument. It's just if it's in GDP, it counts. Now, the inflation metric most commonly reported, most people use, is the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. This is a basket of products purchased monthly by an urban consumer. Well, why an urban consumer? Well, bluntly, stuff goes crazy. Prices go crazy in the remotes because you have to ship stuff in rural places. You end up with monopoly effects. You end up with really high shipping charges. So generally, it's urban consumers. PPI producers, we have various of these for businesses. We make inflation indices all the time. If you need a customized one, professional economists can make one for you. Here's the CPI basket. So where do you spend most of your money on? Housing for me, your rent, mortgages, etc. All this. Apparel, yeah, that's important. Transportation, medical care, recreation, cable television, Netflix subscription goes in there. College education, postage, and I love this, other goods and services. This is funny. Okay, so you got tobacco and smoking products. Vaping, I guess, goes in there. Haircuts, and I love this category. Other personal services. Doesn't that beg the imagination there? Other personal services. And then separately, funeral expenses. Other personal services. I don't know what that is. And then food and beverages. Yeah. So here's your inflation rate. This is the percentage change of the CPI. The CPI is a market basket. So 100 would be the base year. That's right between 83 and 84. Generally speaking, if it's after that, it's going to be above 100. If it's before, it'll be below 100. But here's your inflation rate. Look at this. One little whiff of deflation. Nothing, but look at this. Look at this era. 11%, 11, 13. Think about your rent for a minute. What if your landlord came back and said, I'm going to charge you 10% more this year, and kept doing that year after year after year? How long before you had to move? I mean, this hurts. These in here, they hurt bad. Badly. They really stunk. Here's another whiff of deflation here in the Great Recession. Notice we hit the emergency inflate button. Professional economists do not like deflation because of the Japanese effect. So here's the thing with inflation. As long as you see it coming, it's not a problem. You can take action. You can ask your boss for a pay increase. You can do other things. But if it's unanticipated, if you don't see it coming, then inflation can redistribute wealth in the society. Now, we have this idea called the real interest rate. The real interest rate is the nominal interest rate minus pi in macroeconomics means inflation. Real is equal to nominal minus inflation. So nominal interest rates are what they say you get on your savings account, checking account, or what they say you're paying on your credit card. That's the nominal rate. The real interest rate is what it does to your buying power. So if they say your savings account gives you 1% and the inflation rate is 2%, 1 minus 2 is -1. That means your real interest rate is -1%, or you're losing buying power by putting money into that savings account. Yes, the amount of money goes up, but you're actually losing buying power by putting money in the savings account. We do real wages versus nominal wages. This real nominal thing goes all the time, everywhere. We use it all over the place. Professional economists do not like deflation. We talked about this back in Chapter 5 with regards to Japan. If deflation goes long enough, you get a deflationary spiral. And that eventually can really damage an economy. So this is the index. Again, you saw this back in Chapter 6. For inflation indices, you just take your basket in time t divided by the basket in the base year. Keep that equation handy. You'll need it for your homework. All right. So thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate you. If you have any questions, please call me or come see me during office hours.